The ammo mod system in Cold War Zombies has been a topic of controversy, especially as of late. It's one of those things Treyarch is still trying to figure out, so they keep nerfing and buffing things, and it seems like the more they mess with it, the worse it gets. The best version of the ammo mod system in Cold War Zombies was when we had just gotten to tier 5 upgrades along with Shatterblast. Back then, Deadwire was overpowered, Brain Rot was great, Cryofreeze was great, and Shatterblast was okay. The only ammo mod that needed some major tuning was Napalm Burst. All they had to do was buff Napalm Burst a lot and maybe buff Shatterblast a little bit, and that would have been perfect. But Treyarch did what Treyarch always does. They took the fun out of the game. They have a long track record of reactionary nerfs when it comes to zombies, and I think the problem is when it comes to balance, they take the same approach with zombies as they do with multiplayer. In multiplayer, people bitch about guns being overpowered, then they nerf those guns, and they buff other guns, then they nerf and buff and repeat the same cycle until things are where they should be. But what I think they don't seem to understand is that in multiplayer, things being overpowered is considered to be just as bad, if not worse, than something being underpowered. Because it's a PvP game, and people don't like to get killed by other people, so they bitch about their guns being too overpowered. In zombies, things work differently. Things that are considered to be overpowered are usually a lot of fun, because it's a PvE game and it's not as competitive, so pretty much the only difference an overpowered weapon can make is that you'll just be able to get to a higher round faster, which in turn makes the game more fun to play. I'm oversimplifying, obviously. I'm not dismissing the idea of balance in zombies. It is a thing, and it is important, but I don't think it should be treated the same way as balance in multiplayer. If there are 4 different variations of a wonder weapon, you want all 4 of them to be good, and you'd want them to be as close to each other as they can possibly be in terms of how powerful they make the player feel. And if it's done right, you should have difficulty choosing between them, and it should make you want to try all of them. But if there is one wonder weapon in the map and you only get to use that single wonder weapon, there's not much of a reason for it to be nerfed unless it's just absolutely insanely broken. And the problem Treyarch has is that they take something and they nerf it way too much, and that's not what you should do. You should maybe nerf it a little bit, then you get feedback, and if it needs readjusting, readjust it. But for some reason, every time Treyarch nerfs something, it's always gotten a negative response from the community. Not once have they nerfed something and then the community went, "Oh, thank God for that nerf. The Sliquifier was way too strong and I want a challenge. Tight corridors and fall damage is not enough. You also have to give me a weak wonder weapon." No one has ever said that. Treyarch has always been too comfortable nerfing things and too hesitant to buff things. And I think it should be the other way around in zombies. If you want to level the playing field, instead of nerfing the stronger things, buff the weaker things, because that would make the game more fun. Instead of nerfing the shotguns, they need to buff the snipers, and instead of nerfing the ray gun, they could have buffed the die wonder weapon. Now getting back to the ammo mods. The reason why this system was exciting, especially in Cold War Zombies, is because there were multiple good ammo mods. So sometimes you had to choose which one you wanted to go with. It's not like you just had to go with one ammo mod all the time, because almost every single one had a certain role to play. But as it is with everything in a game, one thing just ends up being better than other things. They can never be all completely equal, and that was kind of the case with the ammo mods. Deadwire was the best one, but it wasn't like the other ones were completely useless. They still had their place in the game, but the people at Treyarch just couldn't resist the urge to nerf Deadwire. So they did, and then they did it again, and with the last update, they pretty much nerfed it to the ground. It used to kill almost an entire horde of zombies, and now it kills only one zombie. That is literally the textbook definition of an overreactionary nerf. They also made it so that Brain Rot does not activate when knifing. They buffed Napalm Burst, and for some odd reason, they reduced the explosive damage of Shatterblast by half, which is just mind-boggling to me because I always thought Shatterblast needed a buff, not a nerf. The only good things they did with this update was that they left Cryofreeze alone and they buffed Napalm Burst, but everything else they did just did more damage than actually fix anything. Now, let's talk about Napalm Burst. Burst because we all know how badly it needed a buff, and Treyarch obliged and doubled all of the damage effects of Napalm Burst. So now the description for Napalm Burst reads, bullets deal fire damage. Each bullet has a chance to apply a burn effect on normal enemies, dealing 20% of their maximum health in fire damage over 5 seconds. For Tier 1, initial burn effect deals 10% of enemy maximum health in fire damage. Tier 2 increases burn duration to 10 seconds. Tier 3 doubles burn effect damage. With Tier 4, special enemies can be burned, and with Tier 5, on a burned enemy killed, the enemy explodes, spreading the burn effect to 5 nearby normal enemies, which has a 30-second cooldown. The way the game explains how Napalm Burst works can be a little confusing, so I'll simplify it. With the new buff, if you have it upgraded to Tier 5, Napalm Burst takes 100% of a normal zombie's health over 10 seconds. Before, it used to take 50% of a zombie's health over 10 seconds, but now, with each activation, Napalm Burst kills one zombie over a 10-second period. It has a 3-second cooldown, which is reduced to 2.4 seconds with Elemental Pop. It does 50% extra damage to Russian Manglers and Plague Hounds, which is increased to 100% with Elemental Pop. Now, with this new buff, a lot of people seem to think that Napalm Burst is now a god tier ammo mod, and I'm here to tell you that that's really not the case. There's a reason why Napalm Burst is still not great, and even though the extra damage does help make it better, the main issue with Napalm Burst still remains to be very much present. The main problem with Napalm Burst is not just how much damage it does, it's how it functions. When we look at the other ammo mods, every single one of them accommodates a certain playstyle really well. In zombies, you can either camp or you can train. If you want to camp, Cryo Freeze is perfect because it only has a 1-second cooldown, so it's always there for you, and it slows down and weakens the enemies that are coming at you and makes them do less damage and makes them more vulnerable to damage. But it's not so good with training because it's not capable of killing an entire horde with one activation. The old Deadwire was perfect for training because it had a 15-second cooldown and it was capable of taking out entire hordes. So the cooldown and the amount of damage it was able to do worked harmoniously together and made a decent ammo mod. Brain Rot is also good for training because it has a long cooldown, but the turned zombie can kill a lot of zombies really fast. Shatter Blast is also good for training because of the 25-second cooldown and the damage of the explosion, which sadly they nerfed with the new update. Napalm Burst is kind of an outlier. It doesn't really commit to one playstyle. Instead, it tries to kind of accommodate both, and as a result, it ends up not being very practical in either category. It has a 3-second cooldown, so even though the cooldown is short, it's still there, and because the burn effect takes time to kill the zombies, it's not very efficient and it's not really good for camping. People want an ammo mod that is efficient, something that is capable of killing the zombies in a short amount of time, and that is one thing that Napalm Burst is not. It's not efficient, and that's why it's not really great for training either, but it certainly works better in training than it does in camping. It's still not practical because this ammo mod wants you to shoot one zombie every 3 seconds, so you have to train and shoot the horde every 3 seconds, and that's really not a fun way to play zombies. It just gets exhausting after a while. You don't want to shoot the horde every 2-3 seconds. You want to train, get all the zombies in a nice little bubble, and then kill them all at the same time, which is what Deadwire used to do, and that's why people loved it. The only time Napalm Burst is kind of useful is when the Tier 5 activates, and that's when the burn effect spreads to nearby enemies, and that sort of chaining effect is what this ammo mod needs. But it only activates every 30 seconds, so if you're gonna use this ammo mod, don't burn yourself out using it every 3 seconds. Use it every 30 seconds because that's the only time when it really counts. I think the one way they could still make it work is if that spreading effect would be a part of the actual ammo mod instead of just being a Tier 5 upgrade. If every time you activated Napalm Burst, the burn effect would spread to maybe 2 or 3 nearby enemies, then it would make it worthwhile. But killing a single zombie in a span of 10 seconds is just not very satisfying, and that's why, in my opinion, Napalm Burst is still not a good ammo mod. That is gonna do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments section down below what you think of the new version of Napalm Burst. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.